Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. Wanted to come to you today, this Thursday, on a just absolutely beautiful day so far. Sun is out. Just took the garbage out because the garbage man will be coming around, and thought I'd get a tag done before I head off to school. And so the tag that I want to do is one that's started to make the rounds on BookTube. There's been, I've seen several people that have done it. It's actually a really old tag, so we've revitalized it. This tag goes clear back to May 24th of 2015. It is the currently reading tag. It was originally done by the channel Charlie Ray. I think her name is Charlize. Her actual given name is Charlize. She has a strong accent, so I believe that's what she said. But I saw it on Steve Donahue's channel. I saw it on James Holder's channel, and I know for sure I saw those two. I want to say I saw one or two others, but I wanted to participate in this. This was a one of those nosy tags, pretty easy to do. Just sit down in front of the camera and talk. So I thought maybe I would partake in this. I know I've got some new subscribers to the channel, so maybe you're not aware of all of my reading habits, and that's what this currently reading tag is all about, is some of your reading habits. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first question is, how many books do you usually read at once? Now for me, and of course we're not talking about reading it at the same time. We're talking about in a span of a few days, how many various books are you working through? And for me, I usually have, I'm a little bit of a mood reader, and so I pick up whatever I am in the mood to read. And then I also have buddy reads going, and I have, just some overall TBR lists that I'm trying to go through for my own reading. And so usually I have several different books going at the same time. My wife and my daughter, they always think I'm a little bit nuts because they don't understand how I keep all the stories straight, and I really don't know if I can really explain how I do that, but I do. I know one way, and I've said this before on the channel with questions similar to this, is I typically, now right now is an exception to that, but typically I don't read books that are in the same time period, especially with fiction, and then especially nonfiction. Like I won't read a couple of nonfictions about the Civil War or a couple different fictions about the Civil War. I start crossing stories a little bit, so I try not to do that. So maybe I got one going about the Civil War, but my other one is a World War II, and maybe it's just a plain old fiction of the 20th century. I get various types of books going typically. Like I said, right now is a little bit different because of the buddy reads I got going, and then my Historathon 2023 reads I got going. I've got a couple of them going on the American Revolution, but so far I'm pretty positive I'm going to be able to keep everything straight. At least I hope so anyway. So the original question, how many books? So right now I have 3 that I got going every morning over by the lamp. I have an audio going, so that's 4. And then I've got a couple of, like, I'll call them touch and go books, where I'll read just a little bit, a little snippet, and then I'll go away from it and I'll come back and read a little snippet. I've got a couple of those going, but right now actively I've got 4 going. I have had as many as 9 and 10 books going all at once. I'm a little bit nuts as far as that goes. And that also, explains why I might go for 3-4 weeks without finishing a book, and then all at once in a 3 or 4 day span, I'll finish 5 or 6 of them all at once, bang, bang, bang. And it's because I've got all of them going at the same time. So question number 2, if you're reading more than one book at a time, how do you decide when to switch to reading the other book? Do you read a certain amount of pages in each? Okay, so for me, this, this kind of varies on the situation. So give you an example. If I'm doing a buddy read, so like right now, Peg and I are over at the History Shelf. We are doing a buddy read on H.W. Brands' Our First Civil War. And our plan is to read about and report back on the weekends on about a 50 pages worth of material, thereabouts, give or take. But about 50 pages worth each week is what we have kind of planned to space out our book. And so what I have done is I am waiting right at this moment as I'm doing this buddy read. I'm waiting till Saturday, and then I get all caught up in that book. And then on Sunday, I can leave my message, hopefully. Now, I ended up leaving it on Monday this week because Sunday got busy, and well, not busy. I just fell asleep and took a nap, and then started playing toys with my 6-year-old daughter, and then we watched a movie. Anyway, we got sidetracked. So like with that book, 50 pages a week is kind of our plan. So I do them all on Saturday morning. Let's see here. Some of it depends on, is it for business or pleasure? So like the buddy reads, I consider that business. I've committed to somebody where we are going to read X amount of pages, and we're going to get it done in this time frame. Also, like if I do like a reading event and I want to get, this is the book I want to get done this month. So like with Historathon, that's kind of what I've been doing. So I am reading General George Washington, A Life by Edward Lengel for my Historathon 2023. It's got 19 chapters. My plan is to get this done by before school starts, before things get real hectic at school. And so if I read a chapter, I decided at the beginning of August, if I read one chapter a day in that book, I would be done right before the week before school. At the end of the week, let's see, 19th, that's the Saturday before school starts that next week. And so it was like perfect. And so I consider that a business. I've got one chapter per week. I need to do that to keep on schedule. Now, the pleasure reading, like I was just talking about, I sometimes set, so the Miss Marple books, I wanted to finish that in the first 2 weeks. And so I thought that I think there was 28 chapters. So two chapters a day, and bam, I'm done in the 2-week span, and then I can head on to the next Agatha Christie book. So I got a little bit of business to that, but at the same time, that's a pleasure read. I'm so enjoying those books. And if I am grooving and I am in the story, I'm going to keep reading. So sometimes I might pop off, instead of like 25 pages, I might read 100 pages. Especially if it's like a rainy day out and I'm stuck indoors, or like it's a Saturday afternoon and my daughter's taking a nap, I'll sit there and read, and I might read 100 pages instead of just that 25. So, it kind of just depends on what type of a read it is. And now for this month, I've got those 3 books going that I plan on getting finished. Actually, those 4. And so I've got also a rotation going where I'm reading the amount of pages or the chapters that I want to get read, and then I'll move to the next one, and I'll do that one, then I'll do that one. And then at the end, if there's time left, I go back, and whichever one I was grooving, I go back and I read on that one. So it kind of just depends. So question number 3, do you ever switch bookmarks while you're partway through a book? No. Not really. Why would you? I get a bookmark. I got certain bookmarks. I got like a little bit of a bookmark collection. If the bookmark is pretty cool, I grab it and I buy it, or I keep it, or whatever. And then, but other than that, there's no rhyme or reason for what bookmark goes in the book. So I don't switch them up. I don't know why you would. I don't understand that. So I just pick the one I like and I go with it. Now, I will say that I try to size the bookmark for the size of the book. So if it's like one of my nonfiction books, the bookmark is typically, now this is going to be an exception to the rule because all my other bookmarks are in the other books, but typically the bookmark is it's one of the big bookmarks. If it is a smaller book, so just give you a comparison. So like if it's like this Agatha Christie here, it's a little bit smaller book, I will take a bookmark that is appropriate to the size of the book. because I tend to find that the bookmarks, if they're sticking completely out of the book like this, they get bent over and then they end up getting torn up, and then it just messes with my OCD. And so I try to size it to the book typically. Let's see here. What did we just do? Number 3. So we're ready for number 4. Where do you keep the book you're currently reading? Okay, so my books that I've gotten in the habit of, the books that I am currently reading, sit right over in the living room, right beside the lamp. There's a chair beside we got a lamp stand or lamp table, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you call it. But the lamp sits there, and then there's a whole bunch of space. And so I've got a coaster that sits there for my coffee mug in the morning, and then my books sit there, and I'll read those in the morning, and they stay right there. Unless my wife is wanting to clean because we're going to have company, and then they have to get put over, either hidden in the closet or on the bookshelf or whatever. Sometimes they sit over by this table over here by the window, but that tends to start getting stacked up if I buy books. And again, my wife likes to keep the house tidy, so she's always getting on me to put them away. But the ones I am currently reading, right over by the nightstand, or by the lampstand. Now, I usually keep one on the nightstand upstairs, and my nightstand has kind of changed over time. My wife actually has the nightstand. I have a dresser right beside the bed, and so I keep it up on the dresser, whatever I'm reading right before bed. Let's see. Number 5, in what time of day do you spend the most time reading? For me, my heaviest reading, if we're like talking on average through the whole year, is definitely in the mornings. From 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. is my heavy reading. That's those 2 hours are what I have blocked out. And of course, actually, I can actually extend that time from 4 to 6:30 because my wife now works at the school with me, and we ride to school together. And so she doesn't get out of bed till 6:30, so I will read until she gets out of bed. So I have about a 2 to 2.5 hour block of time every single morning. And by the way, if those people that ask, how do you read so much? I would venture to say that every person out there that reads a lot, I would venture to say that they will all, if you asked them, how do you read so much? What are your secrets? What's your secret ingredients to the recipe here? I would venture to say that all of them would say they block out a specific time where it's uninterrupted reading. And definitely my 4 to 6 a.m. or 4 to 6:30 a.m. is my uninterrupted time, because the girls do not get out of bed early. They will easily sleep till 10 o'clock in the morning if you let them. So that is my answer to that. Now, as summer hits, so June, July, and then half of August, I can read clear till 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock. And if they're sleeping till 10, sometimes I'll read clear till 10. Typically, I start to burn out a little bit and I need a break. But that is a possibility. I also like to read in the afternoons on days off. But my heaviest time is in the mornings. Number 6, how long do you typically read for in one go? Typically at least a 2-hour block of time, as I was just explaining. So number 7, do you read hardcovers with the dust jacket on or off? Now, that kind of depends. If it is a brand new book, a lot of times the jacket is nice and crisp and stays on the book pretty well. Oh, let me see here. So I'll give you 2 examples. This book right here, this jacket is pretty crisp. It's folded neatly to the cover of the book, and when I read it, it stays on. Now, this cover, this H.W. Brands that I'm reading with Peg, tends to slide. You see that? When I have it in my lap or when I'm holding it, it tends to slide. It's loose for some reason, and so I'm constantly kind of pushing it down. So what I have done when I sit at the dinner table, because I'm taking notes with this one for our buddy read, when I sit at the dinner table to read, I tend to take this cover off as I'm reading just to keep that sliding from happening. And at the same time, if it's an old cover, I tend to, a lot of times I'll take it off because it's real loose. And sometimes those old covers, when they start to, like dry, when the paper starts to dry out and stuff, they'll be real brittle and crumble. So I will take those out and I'll just kind of put them on the bookshelf. And I think Charlie Ray mentioned that too. She'll stuff them right into the bookshelf. She mentioned that in her original video. I do the same thing. Which position do you mainly use to read? I sit in the chair over there by the lamp, so I usually read, sitting up. At night, when I try to get in, a little bit of reading times, typically not much because I'm tired. When I lay back, I tend to fall asleep, and the book will hit my chest and my head will fall. So I don't read laying down all that often. I sometimes do for a little bit in the evening time for a short amount of time, but and I'll tell you what though, if I'm sitting there in bed, laying back on my pillows, laying horizontal on my pillows, if I'm really into the book and I'm wanting to read for longer than 10 or 15 minutes, I will stack my pillows up against the head of the bed or the wall, and I will sit back up because I read better sitting up. Number 9, do you take the book you're currently reading with you everywhere you go? Not everywhere, no, because I tend to have a hard copy, and so I just don't. If I go on vacation, I take it with me. If I'm going somewhere where I know there's going to be a long block of time, I might take it with me, but I don't tend to take them because they tend to get torn up in the car. They'll get, kind of jostled around, and then the cover gets ripped, and it just makes me mad. But if I'm going on a long trip, yes, I will take one. But what I have done to cure this is if I'm waiting, so let's say my wife's going shopping and she's in Target, and I know she's going to be in there a half hour at least, even though she's only getting one item. She's going to be gone at least a half hour, 45 minutes. I tend to always have an audio. I've kind of gotten into the habit over the last couple of years of always having an audio book. And so I'll sit in the car and listen to my audio book. That's kind of my answer to that. I don't like reading from a screen. I know a lot of you do, and more power to you. That's awesome. But it's not for everybody. And I've tried. I really have. I've tried to read from a screen. I just don't like it. Number 10. How often do you update your progress in the book you're currently reading on GoodReads? Now, I am fairly new to GoodReads. You get on my GoodReads, and I've got less than 100 books read in there. I'm fairly new to it. My good buddy Brian over at his channel, Brian MR, he's the one that he had Voxered me and said, hey, you know what? You really need to get on GoodReads. I know how you nerd out on keeping track of your reading, because I do keep track of it. I keep track of it on my phone. I have a notes app on my phone, and I have a specific note for all of my current reads. And then on my computer at school, I have a Google Doc that keeps track of everything I've read. I have a Google Sheets that keeps track of every book I own. I nerd out a little bit on the stats. And so he said, you need to get on GoodReads because this is awesome for that. And so, when I first got on BookTube, everybody asked me about it, and I said, yeah, and I started an account, and then I did nothing with it until really this year. This year's when I started logging books. And so answer to the question, how often do you update? It's every morning. When I'm done as I rotate my 3 books, when I read my chapter or my 20 pages I wanted to get read or whatever my goal was for myself, I will log it in the morning, and that is usually when I log it. Now, if I don't get to a book, like my Agatha Christie this morning, I'm not going to get to it, but this afternoon, I know my daughter's going to lay down for a nap, or at least have quiet time, and there'll be hopefully an hour's worth of time where I'll be able to, as long as I can keep my eyeballs open, I'll be able to sit down with that book. And if it's delayed like that and I'm reading it in the afternoon instead, I will log it at that point. Now, with that being said, if, let's say Sherlock Holmes, I read my chapter this morning, and let's say I read another chapter this afternoon. So I logged it this morning, and then in the afternoon, I won't log it again. I'll wait till that next morning. Okay, so I log in the mornings. That is my long answer to that question. All right, so number 11 is, who do you want to tag? All right, so this is a really old tag. It's been around the block a few times. Again, it was made clear back in 2015, way before I was on BookTube. But, or so, I'm going to say anybody who hadn't done it, you ought to do this, because it's always good to look back at your reading and you know, kind of evaluate yourself and how you read. But I'm going to throw 4 people on there. If you've already done it, not a big deal. If you don't want to do it, not a big deal. But here's my 4 people. I'm going to tag Peg over at the History Shelf. I'm going to tag Brian at Brian MR. I'm going to tag Gareth at Books, Songs, and Other Magic. And by the way, Gareth, your teacher tag, I am going to do that tag. I'm going to hopefully next Tuesday is my plan for it, because we're going to get back to school next Tuesday, so I thought it'd be like a back to school tag. And then over at Revenant Reads. So I tag those 4 people, and anybody else who wants to do it, I mean, do it. It's an awesome tag, pretty easy to do. So anyway, I hope everyone is having a good time, great day, great reading, all that good stuff. As you can see around me, we're getting really close to moving. That is next week. Matter of fact, I believe, are closing, if everything goes, you know, to plan, we close a week from today. And so we will start that process over the next few weekends, you know, going on the assumption we don't get our house sold. Hopefully we do. But if we don't get it sold, we're going to spend the next few weekends moving things here and there into the new house. And yeah, that is my life. So that's the currently reading tag. So go out and do that one. So until next time, BookTube, happy reading.